Hey, 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 welcome back, Lifehouse fam. And for those of you who are new to Now What, welcome. Now What is a podcast for high school students like yourselves who really want to know what they can do now to prepare for life after high school. So if that's why you were with us, welcome again. I am so happy that you are joining. For those of you who this is the first time, my name's Miss Keira, and I am your career coach and mentor. And over the past couple of episodes, we've been covering some good information together. If I do say so myself, I believe that it is valuable and that this episode is going to be even more valuable. The last two episodes, we've really been talking to those of you who are doing everything you're supposed to be doing, right? You're going to class, you're getting decent grades, you're staying involved with clubs and activities, you're checking all the boxes. Yet, although you're doing all the right things, you still find yourself feeling unsure about what comes after high school, right? So, I'm talking to those students today in our last kind of time together on this topic. We talked about why and how doing everything quote unquote right doesn't automatically give you the clarity that you might be seeking. We also talked about how you're not meant to figure this plan of life after high school and career planning all by yourself alone. I gave you practical steps to figuring out what to do next in that type of environment, in spite of all the feels that you get of anxiety, fear, confusion, just frustration of not having a plan. If you haven't watched those yet, those episodes, I really recommend starting there though. So, those episodes will give you context for what we're about to talk about today. And you can find them right here on our channel. So, if that's you, pause, go back, watch those, and then come back and join us. Today, though, we're going to talk about the part that usually feels the hardest. And I'm talking about when you realize that the high school success checklist kind of like fades away, disappears. We're going to discuss how to get back a sense of control and actually move forward, even though you're still unsure about direction and that there's no more, what would I say, metric for success. So here's what a lot of students are used to when it comes to being successful in high school. For most of your life, thus far, success was measured for you. The bars of success were set for you. You know, you're going to take these classes in this order, get these grades, join these activities, and turn things like your homework in on time, right? Those were the things that you were expected to do, the checklist that you had of being successful. You did that, you were good. So even when school felt stressful, you always knew how you were being evaluated and what you needed to do next. There was a clear rubric, if you will. You could tell whether you were doing well or falling behind or failing, right? Even without anybody telling you, because you kind of knew the metric, you knew the rubric you were being graded on. And towards the end of high school and after, that changes. Instead of being handed a checklist, you're now asked to make a choice. And with that choice comes something new. You now have to design your own rubric and come up with those success criterias. And essentially, you're deciding what matters to you right now. And then you got to sell that rubric to other people in your life, right? So, what does progress look like? Is the question that you are left with. How will you measure success for yourself? Now, as I think through that and as I've coached students, I've realized that that shift can feel really uncomfortable for some, not because you're unprepared, though, right? It's not because you're unprepared. Rather, it's because the system has changed and you went from following a clear structure to creating one. And when there's no obvious way to measure doing this thing called life right, it can feel like you have lost control, right? And that control feeling is something that you might not have known that you valued. So, what we're going to talk about next is how do you get that sense of control back by choosing a direction and giving yourself a clear, temporary way to measure progress, if you will. So, given that, are you ready for some practicality and some truth telling here? All right. So, where I would like to start is this idea that you don't get control by figuring out the perfect plan. That's not where control is. You get control back by making a decision that you can actually act on, right? And you can see the fruits of your effort. That decision does not have to be permanent. That is the trick here, right? It doesn't have to be a permanent decision. It just has to be clear enough for you to move forward. So here's what that can look like. If you're the student that is interested in more than one thing, I call that being multi-passionate, okay? Then your step here is to just pick one to focus on first. Not because the others are wrong. Sometimes we make that conflation, right? We think we're doing right versus wrong. But you're making that decision to move with something first because you can build momentum. You can't build momentum, sorry, when you're going in 5 directions at once. So think about it like, if I were to give you an analogy, think about it like ordering food at a restaurant. You can look at the restaurant's menu for a very long time, and there could be a lot of good options on there. You got some sweet stuff, you got some savory stuff, and nothing is essentially wrong with any of them, but it's like information and choice decision overload, right? At some point, at some point though, you either have to place an order or you don't eat, right? It's place an order or don't eat. So not choosing in that scenario doesn't stop the fact that you're hungry. It just keeps you stuck at the table. So you have to just pick something at that point, right? And so that's kind of what we're talking about. And hopefully that analogy makes sense. So, and in that sense, maybe that thing you pick becomes your go-to order at that place. Maybe it's a good choice. But you realize even with that next time you want to try something different because you were so, impressed by that one meal. So clearly the other ones are great and you go to try something next there. Either way you learn, it is a win-win. The menu itself didn't disappear. You're not locked into that order forever. You just can't move forward without choosing something first. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's how the next steps after high school can work as well. Just choose one path. And when you're doing that, that doesn't mean that the other choices were wrong. It means you gave yourself something real to work with that you can act upon. And that's where control and clarity starts to show up because now you've made a decision that you can act on. Okay. So remember, this isn't right versus wrong. It's right versus right. Any choice that gets you learning and gaining experience is a win for you. Okay. All right. So that's for the people who have, are multi-passionate. But what if you are the person that you don't know what you're interested in yet? I got something for you too, and it's going to be a real simple insight that I think you're going to be like, really? But like, really, that's what I want you to do. For you, I suggest that you narrow the field. Take a career assessment. There's tons of them out there. If you look on our website, on our resources page, we have a list of them that can get you started. Once you take that assessment, get a short list of the ones that pique your interest, 2 or 3. And then just simply pick one. Pick up from where the first group I had talked about is, or was. Just pick one. Pick what option to explore first. Why? Because once you make that choice, something important happens. You can then act on it. You can make a plan. Now you can ask yourself, what's the next step for this path that I chose? What skills, will I need, right? So now you're able to kind of remove that barrier and move forward with a plan because it's right versus right, right? Not right versus wrong. You could start asking yourself, what experience should I engage myself in now to help me test this path that I'm on? And that's where the anxiety and the frustration starts to drop and the clarity and the control start to increase because you're no longer stuck deciding what you're doing. Here's the part that I think most people skip to, though, when you are taking this strategy and moving forward. As you pick, I want you to start paying attention. Ask yourself while you're on this path, what am I learning? What feels easier than perhaps what I was expecting? What am I enjoying more than what I thought I was expecting? What feels harder for me? These questions that you're going to continue to ask yourself throughout, what skills am I building that I can use anywhere else? That's an important one. Those questions that you're reflecting on continuously throughout your journey, that reflection matters. It's because that's how you're going to use this experience and turn it into more clarity. Talking it through helps too. So if you have a coach, a mentor, or a trusted adult that can help you put words to what you're experiencing and feeling and learning, that will help you with your next decision and making it a smart one that is informed, right? So making an informed decision. Um, Honestly, I think that's how real confidence builds. It's not from knowing necessarily the outcome, but from knowing you can move, that you can learn, and you can adjust. So you're not stuck because you don't know enough. Your history, your experience so far has shown that you are smart, that you are capable, and that you are knowledgeable. So in this sense, you're stuck because you haven't chosen a starting point. And once you do, and you release the stress and the weight of that, making the right decision, once you just choose a pathway, the checklist comes back and you just get to build it for yourself this time. So hopefully that was helpful. As we wrap up this series, I kind of want to zoom out for a moment and pull kind of all of this together with a recap. Okay. So this entire conversation has been for those of you who are doing everything you're supposed to be doing. You're showing up, you're, earning the grades, you are doing the activities by being involved in various student orgs. And still, when it comes to life after high school, things feel unclear. Okay, that's who we've been talking to. And the first thing we named is something a lot of students quietly kind of struggle with. Okay, doing everything right does not guarantee clarity about your purpose, about your passion, about your path, and what's possible for you. Okay, confusion at this stage isn't a sign that something is wrong. Rather, it's a sign that the structure you were used to from you were a baby up until now, it is changing. And it is supposed to as you kind of go into this adulting phase in your life. That's why instead of trying to decide on what you want to do for the rest of your life, it's more useful to focus on two simple questions. One, who am I becoming? And two, what do I want to learn next? Okay, that can make choosing your next step a lot easier regarding figuring out what you want to do after high school, right? Because it isn't about picking the perfect destination or the right destination. It's about picking the right environment for you, the environment that will help you thrive. You're deciding where you'll spend most of your time next and what that environment will help you learn and grow and practice on your way to becoming the person you want to become. That's where curiosity kind of comes in, where you pick two or three things you are genuinely interested in and you kind of follow that. not what sounds impressive to other people or what you think you're supposed to do in this stage in life. Okay. Also here, looking for a class or program or job or experience that lets you learn those things in real life. That's also beneficial. That was a tip that we shared also in episode like 2 episodes ago. And you are never meant to figure all of this out alone. So that is what we talked about as well. This idea of feeling isolated and that you're the only person kind of going through this transition um, at this stage in your life. So that's why we talked about tapping into your brain trust, right? Those people around you who have lived experience, that have gone through that transition before, that have made the mess ups, who have made those decisions, changed their minds, and figured things out in all the chaos, right? You're going to go to them. Each of them provides you an opportunity to have a conversation where you can take insight away that you don't have yet, right? So you're learning from their experiences instead of stumbling on your own. Asking questions isn't a sign of weakness, it's a skill. And it's one you'll use over and over and over again as you become a professional. But none of that really works if you're still carrying the pressure of pretending to have it all figured out and having it all together. So we talked about that part too. Part of moving forward is being willing to admit where you actually are. Saying, I just don't know. I don't know, right? And you're letting go of the idea that you're supposed to know everything right now and have the perfect plan, because successful people aren't successful because they always knew the answer. They are successful because they learned how to move forward and move through ambiguity, if you will, without having all the answers and without freezing and getting stuck for long periods of time. A lot of the weight you feel comes from holding uncertainty quietly in your own brain instead of letting it out in conversation. And eventually, all of this leads to one important moment that you get to experience: the fact that you get to make a decision. Not a forever decision, not a perfect decision, just a decision that you can act upon and gain momentum and clarity. That's how you get your sense of control back. When you decide, even temporarily, you create the momentum you've been seeking. You give yourself something to work with. And because of that, right, you're in a win-win situation, no matter which direction you choose. You're still learning. You're still building skills. You're still growing and gaining experience. So here's the last kind of encouragement that I want to say. Trust your gut. Trust the skills you've already developed. You didn't suddenly lose your ability to succeed just because the checklist has changed. You're not off track. I think you've heard me say that before in other episodes, right? You're not off track. You're just no longer handed a rubric. You get the exciting opportunity and job of creating your own. And just like you have in every phase before this one, you'll rise to the occasion. You'll give it your best effort, and you'll figure it out as you go. All right? So that is all. That is where we are. I hope that you have gotten some strategies and tidbits to move forward. But before you go, if that was you and you benefited from any of these episodes in season 2 and it's helped you feel a little less stuck or a little more confident or both about what comes next, subscribe to our channel, right? Make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that when we drop more gems and release more episodes like these practical tips and guidance, that you are the first to know, right? We want this to be a place of real talk, real guidance, real tools to help you navigate life after high school without feeling overwhelmed or alone, because at least we are here for you. You don't have to have it all figured out. Most of us don't. right? You just have to keep learning, asking great questions, and moving forward. So that's all for now. Peace out, Lighthouse, and